Are there hiccups, though, that we should be watching for in the next 48 hours ahead of this vote on Saturday?
I mean, it's Congress. Anything can happen. But, I was really struck by Congressman Turner's comments about the fact that if there is a effort to oust Speaker Johnson, that the Democrats would prevent that. And so you almost, it's sort of an extraordinary moment where you have the more extreme members of either party and the centrists kind of coming together to pass this package and to protect Johnson from any repercussions that might come from that. And it's, that's unusual. I can't think of another time when that has really happened before where that's been the scenario. So, I think that's going to be really interesting. Of course, anything could happen with these aid bills. There's one for Ukraine, there's one for Israel, there's one for the Indo-Pacific, Taiwan especially. Yep. There's a grab bag of other things with TikTok certainly being one of those things. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's a lot there, but assuming that everything goes smoothly and that it gets the support that the congressman predicts, the real question is going to be what happens to Johnson. Right. And if the Democrats and the Republicans can come together to sort of keep him in power, that will be a really interesting moment for Congress.
Well, you said something interesting there. It depends what happens to these bills, because they could be reshaped somewhat through the process here, I guess, unless they just throw the rules out the window, and that's possible as well, Dan. But we're seeing an attempt to amend this legislation already. Marjorie Taylor Greene has an amendment, for instance, that would require anyone who votes for the bill, any lawmaker who votes for the bill, to conscript in the Ukrainian military. I'm assuming that probably won't be heard. But there are going to be some amendments debated. Could these change shape between now and Saturday?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there are always attempts by clever lawmakers to sort of put people on the spot by using these measures, right? So assuming that everything gets through the House, though, the question then becomes obviously what happens in the Senate. And if the bills are changed at all in the House, that makes it all the more difficult to get through the Senate. Mm-hmm. And we know from our reporting that the Biden administration is already getting together this package of military aid to Ukraine together as we speak. So, and Kailey, you mentioned that there's no time to lose for the Ukrainians. So, this is a delay, or any delay in this could not just be a parliamentary or procedural delay, but have consequences on the battlefield as well.
Right, Dan, thank you. Great reporting. Dan Flatley starting us off here in our panel. President Biden called it an incredible honor today as he received endorsements from more than a dozen members of the Kennedy family, undercutting the presidential campaign, or so they hope, of independent Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Here are some of the comments from RFK Jr.'s sister, Carrie Kennedy.
Daddy stood for equal justice, for human rights, and freedom from want and fear, just as President Biden does today.
Bloomberg's Michelle Jamrisko joins us now. It's his third day in Pennsylvania. This one is special, flanked by a great number of Kennedys today, with the exception of one. Does that make us think that the campaign is growing more concerned about confusion over the Kennedy name? We all remember that ad in the Super Bowl. People think Kennedy, that's a Democrat, and that could take votes away from Joe Biden.
I don't know how much there is the level of concern. There's certainly uncertainty about what role the other RFK might play in all this. As spoiler, I think what the campaign was trying to do here was manyfold. I mean, this is obviously personal for Biden. He talks a lot about RFK being one of his political idols, brought him into public service. To have the Kennedy clan there backing him, telling him that he has the family's endorsement, and almost all of the grandchildren were endorsing him. That was really special for him. You could see he was glowing from that and really taking in all the praise around how he looked like RFK. He looked like daddy, as Carrie would say. So that was really special. But of course, importantly, she did kind of have some veiled criticisms of her brother through the criticisms of Trump, talking about conspiracy theories, talking about how most people in the family are for Biden, and not directly hitting her brother, but really kind of pointing out, as she said, that there are only two people that have a chance at winning this presidency. So really trying to make that case, and on the side, also making the case that the campaign has tried to make for a long time, which is that this is democracy at stake, that they really need to push this hard. Yep. The choice is between democracy or chaos with Donald Trump.
Well, Donald Trump spent his day today in a courtroom in New York. He just actually finished emerging from the courtroom, in which he reiterated some things we've heard before, that he's supposed to be in Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina, a lot of different places campaigning. But I'm here all day on a trial that is really an unfair trial, according to the quote that we've gotten from him. It is keeping him off the campaign trail. And notably, Biden on the campaign trail isn't calling that much attention to this court case. And I'm assuming, Michelle, that is by design.
Yeah, I think he doesn't really have to at this point. I think, they're very careful in the Biden administration and the campaign to not go too hard on the legal proceedings there. I think they're happy to let those kind of play out on their own. But Biden was, kind of notably talking about where Trump wasn't. I mean, he said Trump doesn't have a campaign office in Pennsylvania. He's there, 2-3 days this week and talking about a range of different issues and trying to take advantage of his presence and Donald Trump's notable absence there.
Does this economic populist message yesterday, increased tariffs on China, ring true for working class voters in a place like Pennsylvania? That seems to be Trump's lane.
I think he played to the right crowd. I mean, they're both trying to outcompete each other on being aggressive on China. It remains a bit of a mystery on how that's going to play out and on what level and how that comes to policy measures. But we did hear Biden promise that the Nippon Steel deal is dead. So we'll see where that goes from here.